Welcome back. Now this stream I named the what will happen, the AI economy. What happens when actually, you know, when judgments stops being scarce. Interesting idea, right? I'm Ilya Lamin, and this is the place where we explore the next era, economic era, the AI economy. Because right now we are in the what we could call internet-based economy. Now we're going into AI-based economy, and it's really interesting to kind of understand what's really going to happen when AI going to be fully implemented, fully adopted by the industry, by the economy, by people, by everyone. And my approach is to view on the very practical level what's going to happen, how it's going to be integrated, how it's going to be used in everyday life. So in the previous streams, I've been talking about multiple things, obviously, but mostly like a brief reminder, just like that, is that the model that I'm using to describe what really going to happen is that we saw that internet basically automated the coordination of information. That's why Google was saying we organize world information. Yeah, internet by itself organizes world information. Now, what will happen with AI is that AI will organize judgment. In other words, it will, automate the coordinations of decisions. Or to be much more clear, it's gonna give us a lens in terms of digest the information that's already available on the internet and give us this lens where we're gonna see the reality from another point of view. Because right now what happens is that with all the information that comes from the internet, we're simply overloaded. That's why we're so exhausted, for many of you that are working within corporations or any other companies, or just overloaded by all the information that comes in. So AI going to filter a lot of that stuff. It's going to digest a lot of it and give us what is relevant for us so that we could make decisions. It doesn't make decisions on our behalf. It will basically give us a clear approach and some clarity so that we could act in the most responsible way toward ourselves and the society in general. So just brief reminder, we've been exploring AI through concrete sectors. I've been talking about healthcare sector, showed that AI organizes clinical decisions. I mean, like in the financial sector, I showed that AI organizes risk and allocations decisions. Like I took as an example, basically, if a company, a business need to obtain financing, what happened, in a pre-internet era, during the internet, and what will happen during the AI era. If you wanna have much more details, I'm not gonna cover that in this stream. You could look at the previous streams that I did. Now, the knowledge work. I also showed the knowledge work, how AI organize everyday judgment, basically, because right now we're overloaded. Any of you that is working in the knowledge work, whatever it's you are an engineer, a manager, an analyst, an IT architect, whatever it is, that doesn't really matter what you're doing. You're overloaded. I'm sure you have too many emails, too many messages, too many information. Some of them are conflictual. A lot of it is highly irrelevant. And so a lot of noise. What AI does, it filters through that noise and it gives you a clear idea what's going on so that you could focus on the most valuable things that you could do related to your job. That's the whole idea here. Obviously, it's not going to happen in the 2-3 years from now because AI is highly limited, and I covered that in the previous streams also. But you see, a clear pattern has kind of emerged here, so that the internet organizes information, as I said that, but AI organizes decisions and judgment. It's basically AI automates the coordinations of decisions. So tonight's question is, what does that mean for the economy as a whole, basically? Now, what tonight is about is, it's not about another sector. And I'm not going to give you another example of another sector and how, how it went from internet, how it's doing by using internet, and how it's going to be doing by using AI. I think I already gave an example of healthcare and the financial sector, and the other sectors are quite similar. I mean, that's the pattern is kind of the same. Now, tonight it's about what all of this adds up to. What will be the consequences, basically? Now, in the internet economy, information stopped being scarce. I mean, you could access any information that you want, any content that you want. You could access it through videos on many platforms, in form of text from from many websites. It just the information is available out there. It's not like in the old good days when you had to go to a library to just kind of understand something. No, it's highly available. It's highly available everywhere through a search engine. Anything that you want to find, you could find. There's no scarcity of information if you have access to internet, and you don't actually need to have a computer anymore, whether it's laptop or desktop. You just need to have the cheapest phone that you can find, and if you have access to the internet, well, you have access to the entire world's information. So information is not scarce anymore. Now, in the AI economy, and that's important, in the AI economy, judgment starts actually stop being scarce. And this is the whole an amazing distinction, because you see, AI does, at the end, AI will not decide for us. Actually, what AI will do is that AI will take contextual data about what's going on with us, with our reality, personal reality, whether it's on a professional basis, on a personal basis, business-wise, doesn't really matter. It's the contextual, it's the data around you, it's what you're living through. So it's gonna take that, and actually it's gonna take all the data that it can find on the web and digest it and give you a clear idea of what's going on and what could be the options. So you see, the whole judgment, something that we could definitely not do with our physical brains, because we are limited. And again, I talked to this many times in the previous streams. When it comes to judgment, you see, we don't see reality in a very objective way. In other words, we see reality through the lens, through this filter of our beliefs or a system of beliefs. And those beliefs comes from the way we were conditioned in the childhood, from 0 to 7 years old mainly. And maybe in some way in the adolescence, actually. So we see reality through that lens. And very often, our judgment and our understanding about ourselves and about the reality outside of us is altered by our beliefs. So we don't see the reality as it is usually. We see the reality in other people and even ourselves through our systems of beliefs that could be very often do not really represent what's really going on. And so that's where AI gives us this lens, this much more objective, and it's not perfect. AI is not perfect, it has its own biases, everything that goes with. However, we will see a much more objective reality. And by seeing that more objective reality, we have more chances of making the right decisions for ourselves and for other people. And that's where AI comes. That's where AI kind of filter a lot of things and actually give us the most relevant information and an options of decisions that we could make. It will not make decisions on our behalf. That's not going to happen. But it will give us the augmentations that we need when it comes to knowledge so that we could make the right decisions. Because right now we're just overloaded with information. We don't even know what really to trust. That's how bad it is. Or even who to trust, in reality. Now, you see, so AI will not decide for us, that's for sure. It structures up options, trade-offs, and consequences. It will project what will happen if we take X, Y decisions. This changes how value actually is created. Because, this is the change where actually power sits. This change who feels comfortable and who actually doesn't, you see. Now, what becomes scarce in the AI economy? That's the real question. It's not information. It's definitely not intelligence in the way we understand it. It's not even, and I'm sure that's, I'm gonna receive a lot of hate about this. It's not productivity. It's not personal productivity. It's clear responsibility. It's the trustworthy judgment. Trust. It's the willingness to choose. It's the ability to live with the consequences that we made. So when clarity increases, whether it's with AI or without AI, hiding becomes kind of pretty much harder. It's hard to hide yourself when everything is, I'm not saying highly transparent, but highly clear. And why the whole thing, this feels uncomfortable for certain people. Many roles right now in our economy are built around managing ambiguity. When the environment creates ambiguity, that's where a lot of people can hide, because you have so much unclearness that just managing it becomes I would say a profession by itself, an occupation by itself. So AI reduces ambiguity. Intuition becomes visible, and authority becomes exposed. Some people lose the comfort of saying, you see, it's complicated, and you see it. Actually, that's funny, because you see it a lot with the economists. You ask a question to an economist, and a specific question, why, why a financial bubble popped up, or why we are in a crisis. And the economist will say, well, that's complicated, And when you hear, actually, if you go back before any crisis to any financial analyst, whatever it's on mainstream, on social media, they kind of found the same. They will all say, first of all, they will, when it comes to forecast, they will always give you the false, forecast, basically, because they don't pretty much don't know what's going to happen. That's the first thing. When just before a recession or a crisis, they will say, oh yeah, there's no recession, there's no indication for a recession or a crisis, and then you have a crisis. So it's always a kind of false forecast, or it's a very general one that not really doesn't give you any indications, or doesn't even help you. That's one thing. the second thing is that you see very often that, it's not that they don't know what they're talking about, it's that very often they pretty much don't really and that's kind of I don't want to insult anyone, but that's the sad thing, is that very often they don't know what they're talking about. Just they don't understand the mechanics of it. They learn something, they doing some supposition, put some hypothesis. They hope the hypothesis will work, but doesn't really represent what's really going on. So what somebody say, it's complicated. Very often they don't understand the mechanics behind what's really going on, and that's kind of unfortunate. And you have a lot of consult. I'm not gonna give names, that's for sure, but a lot of consulting companies, they just overcomplicate things because they wanna. I understand that the whole business is to bill as much as possible to the client, but it's just very often there's no value. No one is providing value. They will just say it's complicated, and they will come out with something highly complex that sometimes they don't even understand. They cannot explain. And when I will ask the question, well, your supposition or your decision is based on what? Very often they will say, oh yeah, they will not answer, or if they will answer, it will be, yeah, I mean, it's complicated, there's too much things, and then they'll use a lot of technical terms that very often means nothing. So that's where you have this ambiguity. So what AI creates, it creates clarity in terms of what's really going on the very fundamental level. So resistance to AI is often kind of emotional at this point, not technical, because technically speaking, it's an augmentation tool. If you use it obviously as a copilot, it could automate certain tasks for sure, but mainly the value of it is to provide as much clarity as possible. So, in order to conclude what's really, AI, what's really going on actually, and what will happen in the next years, because obviously what I'm talking about when it comes to AI automating the coordination of decisions, organizing judgment, it will not happen in the next few months, because the reality of it, if we put aside all the hype that we hear on the social media, on the even mainstream media, all the hype about AI and all the fearful beliefs and theories about AI, that it will become sentient and will go eliminate all the jobs and will be in a kind of a how would they call it, a post-labor economics, so there will be no jobs. It will just put aside all those things, and we see on a very practical level what's going to happen is that, yes, we'll switch. AI will give us more clarity. It will organize judgment. It will automate the coordination of decisions. That will be the real value of AI. But it will take much more time than we think. It will take years to be fully adapted. First, right now the AI products or tools that we're using are highly limited. The computational power is not, actually we don't have enough computational power when it comes to microchips to do the things that we're supposed to do, to use AI as a real copilot and not just a tool that we need to prompt, that we need to send instructions each time, and that doesn't really have what we call context awareness that we need to use it as a real copilot. Yes, some tools, some AI, they started to have some highly limited context awareness. In other words, they collect data about you, about what you're going through, um, and then create that context specific to you. But actually, it's highly limited. It's supposed to be much more than that. AI is supposed to see what you see. It's supposed to hear what you hear. It's supposed to see your behavior, see what you did before, you know what you're doing right now, what you're not doing, what you're doing. All of that data gives the specific context relevant and related to you, not some generic stuff. This is not where the value is actually. So that's highly important, and that's actually we're not even close to that level of context awareness that AI tools or the AI as an infrastructure need to have at the moment. It's going to change with the years when the computational power will increase for sure, and we'll learn how to use it. At this point, I will say, I look at the real statistics. Very few people use AI on a daily basis, because what those companies that sells that offers those products related to AI, they will basically say that we have millions of users. But what is a user? A user is somebody who installed the app, or somebody who kind of opened an account in an account that's supposed to use an AI. Are they using AI on a daily basis? Very often not. What happens is that even within the people who open the account, I think within the United States, we're talking about 19% of the whole population of United States that really have they are users of AI. In some countries where you have a much younger population, actually the use of AI it's much higher. It goes up to 30% of the whole population. But we're very early stage, and within those people, the one that are using AI on a daily basis are no more than a couple of percent. So we're talking about, if we compare it to the internet, we're talking about very early stages of adoption, maybe in the early 1990s, when only few people were using the internet. In the 1990s, in today, they're using AI. Very few people, very few percentage of people are really using AI on a daily basis. And within those most people that are using AI today, they're using AI as a vending machine. They put a prompt, they put an instruction, and they expect something amazing to come out. And very often they see something highly generic. And then they have this back and forth, and very often, sometimes they get something interesting, sometimes they're not. That's the vending machine approach, or the microwave approach. They put it and they expect something quickly to happen. Other use it as a glorified search engine. You don't need to, if you want a recipe of Chinese pasta, you don't need to prompt it. You just need to go to any search engine and you'll have the best recipe of a Chinese pasta. That's not the real value of AI. The real value of AI is when you use it as a real copilot, when you use it as an assistant. Whatever you have challenges in life, whatever on a personal level, on a professional level, you interact with AI, or AI will interact with you. And together, you're gonna be guided toward a good resolution, or a good decision, or a good behavior. Basically, you use AI as a lens to see the reality in a different way. That's what AI as a copilot should be doing. And it's not doing because the tools that we have are highly limited. I'm using AI as a copilot today, and I'm a very, very small minority of people that are kind of exploring AI and trying to simulate AI and trying to experiment with AI in a certain way. What we're doing, and obviously, I'm not expecting anyone to do that, but because you have to be highly disciplined to do that, we basically auto prompt AI on a daily basis as if it was, as if it was working in the background, basically having a conversation back and forth on a continuous way, basically. And that allows us to create this kind of, and to see how AI interacts with us, and to see the synchronization, or what we call being in sync with AI, when we don't need to prompt anymore AI has enough context awareness, so that just a couple of words AI understand what's going on, and actually could guide us in a certain direction, and help us to take the right decisions, or just change the way we see things about when it comes to certain situations. That's how it's supposed to be used, and it's not used at the moment. So eventually we're going to learn how to use it, but we are at the very early stages of AI adoption, and this is why a lot of companies are saying AI doesn't add any productivity at the moment. In the same way, in the 1990s, internet wasn't adding any productivity to companies, to corporations, because in the 1990s we've been using a dial-up internet connection, which was highly slow. The internet was slow. We had to wait for the broadband internet to really experience and get the value of sharing content and sharing information in an effective and efficient way. And this is what we have with AI. We have a limitation when it comes to computational power. That's why we basically, the microchips are not powerful enough, and this is why they consume a lot of energy. When it comes to energy, I think I'm gonna make a whole live stream just to explain that when it comes to even microchips, we're still using electronic microchips, and eventually we're going to switch to photonic microchips, which are going to be faster and will emit virtually no heat, and probably will not even need to have data centers, because one of the big consumptions of the electric energy of the data centers is just to cool down the microchips. So I mean there's a lot of changes that will come up, but they will take some time, and the adoption of AI also will take some time. But it's good to know what will happen and how things will change. That said, if you find it interesting, please leave your comments, your questions, anything that you see interesting. Don't hesitate to comment on that. I read everything. And if you have any suggestions, please leave them also in the comment section. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.